Welcome to another episode where we dive deep into the latest in recruitment strategies, AI innovations, and HR solutions. If you're looking to elevate your hiring game and stay ahead in the ever-evolving world of talent acquisition, you're in the right place. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an episode filled with insights, expert interviews, and actionable tips to transform your recruitment approach. Stay tuned for exclusive content designed to make your hiring process smarter, faster, and more effective.
All right, let's jump right in. You sent over some fascinating notes about what makes a top-notch front-end developer using these three: TypeScript, Next.js, and React. Sounds like you're really getting deep into the world of modern web development.
Yeah.
We're going to be diving into a podcast called What Makes a Great Front-End TypeScript, Next.js, and React Developer? Tools, Key Skills, and Resume Insights for HR.
Okay.
And I think that we can break down the key skills, the tools, and even get into some of the resume tips for someone in this role.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Get ready for some aha moments, because even I was surprised by a few things as I was reading through this.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a fast-moving field, so understand not just the what these tools are, but also the why.
Yeah.
Why are these skills important is just crucial.
Absolutely. Well, the podcast starts out by talking about what they call the trifecta, and they say it's basically the foundation of a modern web app. And they're talking about TypeScript, React, and Next.js. So I'm curious, why is that? Why do they call these three the trifecta?
Well, because each one brings something so incredibly important to the table.
Okay.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
Let's start with TypeScript.
Okay.
So imagine if you were building a complex e-commerce platform, right?
Yeah.
Tons of products, you're processing orders, you have user information. What TypeScript allows you to do is to define very strict data types.
Okay.
For your products, for your orders, for your user information, so that when different parts of your application interact with each other, you can be sure that those interactions happen flawlessly.
Okay, so you're not like putting in a text string when you need a number.
Exactly. So you can avoid, those really frustrating errors where you're like, wait, why is this breaking? I'm trying to calculate the shipping cost, but for some reason I'm trying to do math with like a text string.
Yeah.
That's something that TypeScript helps to avoid.
So it's like almost like a safety net.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your code, to make sure that it's more reliable and it's working properly.
And make sure that your code is doing what it's supposed to do.
Gotcha. What about React? Because the podcast also mentioned that this has kind of revolutionized building user interfaces.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they brought that up because React is really one of my favorites.
Okay.
So React is a JavaScript library, and it utilizes something called component-based architecture.
Okay.
And this is such a powerful idea. So think of it like constructing a house. If you're constructing a house, you wouldn't start by like making every single brick and nail yourself, right?
Right.
You would go to the store and you would buy prefabricated walls and roofs and, like flooring. Right.
Yeah, you get components.
Exactly. Like
Pre-built pieces.
Yeah. You get components. And so what React allows you to do is break down your user interface into these self-contained components. And the beauty of that is that it makes your development process much faster because you're not reinventing the wheel every time. It's more organized because everything has its own place.
So you can kind of swap components in and out?
Exactly.
Or update them without affecting the whole?
Exactly. So if you wanted to change something about one specific part of your user interface, you don't have to worry about breaking something else. You can just go into that component, make the changes, and everything else is isolated from that.
That's pretty efficient.
Oh, yeah. And then so we have TypeScript, which brings the type safety and, make sure that the code is working exactly the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
We have React, which allows us to build these beautiful UIs. And then there's Next.js. And Next.js, I think of as almost taking React to a whole other level.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's like built on React.
Yes, it's built on top of React.
Yeah.
And what it does is it brings this whole, it handles server-side rendering and all of these really powerful performance optimizations that React by itself doesn't do.
Okay.
So for example, one of the things that Next.js does is server-side rendering. So that means that instead of the website being generated in your browser after it loads,
Okay.
Next.js allows you to generate the website on the server.
So it's prepped in advance.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it's almost like you're prepping a meal, right? If
Yeah.
you have a guest coming over for dinner, you don't wait for them to show up and then start chopping vegetables and, like getting everything ready.
Right.
You prep everything in advance.
And you can just serve it.
Exactly. And that's what Next.js allows you to do. It preps the website in advance so that when the user requests it, boom, it's there.
So what kind of benefits does that give?
Oh, the benefits are tremendous. First of all, it leads to much faster load times because the website's already there, right?
Yeah.
It also improves your SEO or your search engine optimization, which means that your website has a much better chance of ranking higher in search results.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those are just two of the main benefits, but there are many, many others.
That's interesting because it's like thinking ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit because the podcast goes on to talk about skills that make a developer stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting is it's not just about knowing the languages,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also about these other skills,
Mm-hmm.
like problem solving. They talk a lot about critical thinking. Why is that so important for a developer? I always thought it was just about the coding part.
Well, coding is definitely important.
Yeah.
But the reality is that anyone can learn syntax.
Okay.
Anyone can memorize the rules of a programming language. But what sets a great developer apart is the ability to solve problems,
Okay.
to think critically when things inevitably go wrong. Because let's face it, in software development, things go wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And so the ability to kind of dissect a problem, break it down into smaller chunks, and then come up with innovative solutions, that's really what separates a good developer from a great developer.
Okay. So it's almost like, I don't know, like being a detective,
Kind of, yeah.
where you have this problem and you're trying to figure out all the pieces, how they fit together.
Exactly, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like having a puzzle,
Yeah.
and you have to figure out how all the pieces fit together, and sometimes you don't have all the pieces.
And the pieces are constantly changing.
And the pieces are constantly changing. Exactly, you got it.
Okay, that's interesting. I also noticed that they talked a lot about communication skills as being a must-have for a developer.
Yeah.
So why is that so crucial? Because I would think that you could just, sit there at your computer and code, and that would be it.
Well, if you are a solo developer working on your own projects, maybe. But the
Hmm.
reality is that most developers work in teams,
Okay.
and they're constantly collaborating with other developers, with designers, with product managers, even with non-technical folks.
Right. And so the ability to explain complex technical concepts in a way that everyone can understand
Yeah.
is absolutely critical for teamwork
Yeah.
and for overall project success.
So it's about being able to bridge the gap between the very technical and those who might not be so technical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that is so valuable in any profession, really.
That's true. And I also noticed they talked about adaptability as being a key skill.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Because the tech world is changing so quickly, right?
It is.
So how does adaptability kind of play into that?
Well, that's a great point because the tech landscape is constantly shifting. New frameworks, libraries, tools are popping up all the time. Things are becoming obsolete just as quickly.
Yeah.
And so a successful developer needs to embrace lifelong learning, constantly expanding their skill set to keep up with the industry.
Okay.
Because if you're not learning, you're falling behind. It's as simple as that.
So it's almost like it's not about mastering one specific thing.
It's about being flexible and adaptable and constantly learning.
Exactly.
That's-
It's about having that growth mindset, being curious, being willing to experiment, and not being afraid to make mistakes.
It sounds like you're saying that that applies to any field.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not just a front-end development thing.
No, not at all. If you think about, your work or anything that you do in life,
Yeah.
being a good communicator, being a good problem solver, having that adaptability, those are skills that will take you far no matter what you do.
That's a really good point. Now let's talk about tools, because the podcast also delves into the tools that front-end developers use.
Right.
And it's more than just code, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, much more.
So what are some of the things that really stuck out to you as I was reading through these notes?
Well, I think one of the most important tools for any developer, and they talk about this at length in the podcast, is what's called an integrated development environment, or an IDE for short.
Okay.
And this is basically your command center for coding.
Okay.
It's a software application that provides a complete environment for you to write your code, to test it, to debug it, to do all the things that you need to do to create amazing software.
So instead of just writing plain text in like a simple text editor,
Right.
you have this whole environment that's built for developers.
Exactly. Exactly. And these IDEs come with so many amazing features that can really streamline your workflow and make you a much more efficient coder.
Cool. What kind of features?
Well, for example, one of the most basic features, but still incredibly useful, is syntax highlighting.
Okay.
So that means that different parts of your code are color-coded.
Okay.
So you can easily distinguish between like variables, functions, keywords, all that good stuff. It makes your code much easier to read and understand.
So it's visually helpful.
Very visually helpful, exactly.
Gotcha.
And then you have things like auto-completion. So as you're typing, the IDE is actually predicting what you're going to type next.
Oh, wow.
And it can suggest code snippets to complete your thoughts.
That's amazing.
It is. And that saves you so much time and reduces the risk of making typos and errors.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, you have built-in debugging tools.
Okay.
So if you run into a bug, which again inevitably happens,
Yeah.
the IDE can help you track down that bug, step through your code line by line, and figure out exactly what's going wrong.
So it's almost like you have a little detective partner in your coding.
Exactly. I love that analogy.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to stop for now. We've talked about the trifecta, TypeScript, React, and Next.js.
Yep.
We've talked about why those are so important and some of the skills that make a front-end developer stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also started to dip our toes into the world of these amazing tools that are available.
Yeah. The IDEs, the package managers, and of course the version control systems, which we haven't even gotten to yet.
Yeah, we're going to save those for next time.
We'll save those for next time.
So join us then.
Sounds good.
We're back and ready to keep diving into the world of front-end development. Before the break, we were talking about a developer's portfolio website and how it's like their digital storefront.
Right, yeah.
What specifically should someone include on there to catch a recruiter's eye?
Well, it's really about showcasing a range of skills and projects. Ideally, you want to feature websites or web apps that you've built using, of course, the trifecta TypeScript, React, and Next.js.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about showing off that you can code. It's about demonstrating how you've used those technologies to solve real-world problems and to create really engaging user experiences.
So give me an example. What kind of project would really stand out?
Oh, let's see. A developer could include a project where they built, say, an e-commerce site with a super smooth checkout process.
Okay.
Or maybe they built a really cool single-page application that pulls data from an API and presents it in a way that's super user-friendly.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Those are the kinds of projects that really grab attention.
What about personal projects? Because I know a lot of developers, they work on things just for fun.
Oh, absolutely. Personal projects are fantastic. In fact, I encourage every developer to have a few personal projects that they're working on.
Okay.
Because these projects can really demonstrate a passion for learning and for experimenting with new technologies.
So it's not just about these big professional, company projects.
Right.
It's also about things that you're doing on the side.
Yeah, for example, let's say a developer built a fun little web game using React.
Okay.
Or they created a personal blog using Next.js where they share their thoughts on the latest tech trends. Those kinds of initiatives really go a long way in showing a recruiter that this person is passionate and committed.
Yeah, that they're going above and beyond just the bare minimum.
Exactly.
What about the actual code itself? Should developers include, like, code snippets on their portfolio website?
Absolutely. Recruiters often look at a developer's code to assess their style, their attention to detail, how they approach problem solving. So you want to make sure that the code you're showcasing is clean, it's well commented,
Okay.
it adheres to best practices.
So it's like showing that you have a really organized, clean kitchen.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because your portfolio is essentially a window into your coding mind.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it's well organized, it's easy to understand, it's visually appealing even.
I like that. Okay, let's shift back to some of the more technical stuff for a minute. We touched on server-side rendering, SSR,
Mm-hmm.
and static site generation, SSG, with Next.js earlier.
Right.
And I think these can be kind of confusing concepts.
Yeah.
Can you break them down for us and explain why our listeners should even care about these things?
Sure. So the easiest way I can think of to explain this is with an analogy. Imagine you're baking a cake.
Okay.
Server-side rendering is like baking a fresh cake every time someone orders it.
Okay.
So you get a personalized, warm, delicious cake. But it takes a bit longer to prepare, right? Static site generation, on the other hand, is like baking a batch of cakes in advance.
Okay.
So they're still delicious, but they're pre-made and ready to go.
Okay, so SSR is more dynamic.
Yes, exactly. SSR is great for websites with dynamic content that changes frequently, like if you have user profiles or personalized recommendations.
Right.
Each time someone visits the page, the server generates a fresh HTML page tailored to their specific request.
Gotcha. And then SSGs is better for things that are more static.
Yeah, think of things like blog posts or product pages where the content doesn't change very often.
Okay.
Those pages can be pre-generated, which makes them super fast to load because the server doesn't have to do any work every time someone requests them.
So it's about picking the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And the beauty of Next.js is that it empowers developers to choose the best approach for each page of their website.
Okay.
You can have some pages that are server-side rendered, some pages that are statically generated, and you can even mix and match within the same application.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really flexible.
So you get the best of both worlds.
You got it.
Okay. The podcast also mentioned API integration as a really important skill for front-end developers. And I think a lot of people hear that term API and they kind of glaze over.
Yeah, it can sound intimidating.
Yeah. So can you explain in simple terms what is an API and why is it so important for a front-end developer to understand?
Sure. Think of an API as a waiter in a restaurant, okay?
Okay, I like it.
You, the diner, are the front end.
Yeah.
The kitchen is the back end, where all the magic happens, where the food is prepared.
Right.
And the API is the waiter who takes your order, your request, communicates it to the kitchen, and brings you back your meal, the data.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the front end sends requests to the API.
Mm-hmm.
The API fetches the data from the back end.
Yep.
And brings it back to the front end.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it.
So front-end developers need to know how to interact with these APIs to retrieve data and display it on their websites.
So it's like without APIs, the front end would just be an empty restaurant.
Exactly.
With no kitchen, no food.
You got it. You need that API to be the bridge between the front end and the back end.
Okay. So give me a real-world example of how that would work.
Sure. Let's say you're building a weather app.
Okay.
You would use an API to fetch the latest weather data from a weather service,
Okay.
like Open Weather Map or something like that.
Gotcha.
And that API would provide you with the temperature, the humidity, the wind speed, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And then you, as the front-end developer, would use that data to create a beautiful interactive display for your users.
It's amazing how all these pieces work together.
It is, and it really highlights the importance of collaboration.
Mm.
Front-end developers need to be able to communicate effectively with back-end developers
Okay.
to ensure that the API is designed and implemented in a way that meets the needs of the front end.
So it all comes back to teamwork. All right, so we've talked about portfolios. We've tackled these kind of confusing concepts of server-side rendering and API integration.
Right.
When we come back, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the specific tools and technologies that developers use.
Sounds good to me. Let's dive into that toolbox.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of front-end development. We've covered the essential skills, the power of a well-crafted portfolio, and even demystified some of those tricky concepts like server-side rendering and API integration.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's time to roll up our sleeves and really get into the tools and technologies that bring these amazing web experiences to life.
Yeah, let's open up that toolbox and see what's inside.
Okay. The podcast talked a lot about integrated development environments, or IDEs. What exactly are those, and why are they such a big deal for a front-end developer?
Well, you can think of an IDE as your command center for all things coding. It's basically a software application that gives you everything you need in one place to write code, test it, debug it, and ultimately create amazing software. Imagine a souped-up text editor that's designed specifically for developers.
Okay, so it's not just like writing in a plain text document.
Right, it's much more powerful than that.
You have all these extra features and tools.
Exactly. IDEs come with a ton of features that can really streamline your workflow and help you become a more efficient coder.
So, like, what kind of features are we talking about?
Well, even something as simple as syntax highlighting can make a huge difference.
Okay.
That's where the IDE color codes different parts of your code to make it easier to read and understand.
So it's like visually organizing it for you.
Yeah, exactly. It helps you quickly identify variables, functions, keywords, all that good stuff.
Gotcha.
And then you have features like auto-completion. As you're typing, the IDE is actually predicting what you might want to type next, and it can suggest code snippets to complete your thoughts.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. It saves you so much time and helps prevent typos and errors.
Okay, so less time hunting for those missing semicolons.
Exactly. And of course, you have built-in debugging tools, which, let's face it, you're going to need because bugs are an inevitable part of software development.
Yeah, they always sneak in there somehow.
They do. But a good IDE can help you track down those bugs, step through your code line by line, and figure out what's going wrong.
So it's like having a coding buddy to help you troubleshoot.
I like that.
What about package managers? The podcast mentioned those, like NPM and Yarn.
Oh yeah, package managers are essential. Think of it like this. If you were building a house,
Okay.
you wouldn't make every single brick and nail yourself, would you?
No, that would take forever.
Exactly. You'd go to the store and buy pre-made materials.
Yeah, things that have already been created and tested.
Exactly. Well, package managers are kind of like that store, but for code. Instead of writing every piece of code from scratch, developers can use pre-built modules and libraries that have been created and shared by other developers.
So it's kind of like using building blocks to create your application.
Precisely. And NPM and Yarn are the tools that help you manage those packages, making it easy to find, install, and update them as needed.
That sounds a lot more efficient than reinventing the wheel every time.
Oh, absolutely. It saves a ton of time and effort.
Now, the podcast also talked about version control systems, like Git. They mentioned this is really important for collaboration.
Right. And for good reason.
So, can you explain why?
Imagine working on a big project with a bunch of other developers.
Okay.
Without a version control system, it would be chaos. It'd be almost impossible to keep track of everyone's changes and make sure everything works together.
Yeah, it'd be like trying to write a book with 10 different people all working on the same document at the same time.
Exactly. A version control system like Git solves that problem. It lets developers track every change they make to the code, collaborate on different features simultaneously, and easily revert back to previous versions if something goes wrong.
So it's like a safety net for your code base.
It is. It gives you the freedom to experiment and try new things without the fear of breaking everything.
And it makes collaboration much smoother.
Absolutely. Git is a must-have tool for any development team.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the essential technologies, those core skills, building a standout portfolio, even getting into the nuts and bolts of server-side rendering and APIs.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind tour of the front-end development landscape.
And hopefully our listener has come away with a better understanding of what it takes to be successful in this field.
Absolutely. It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding field, and it's only going to become more important in the future.
And the cool thing is, even if you're not a developer, I think a lot of these takeaways can apply to any career.
I totally agree. Things like problem solving, communication, adaptability, those are valuable skills no matter what you do.
That's a great point. So, to our listener, if you're feeling inspired by what we've talked about today, why not explore some of the resources available online?
Yeah, there are tons of free courses, tutorials, even open source projects you can contribute to. It's a great way to learn and grow your skills.
And who knows, maybe you'll discover a new passion. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of front-end development. We'll see you next time.
Until then, happy coding.
Recruitment with next-gen software solutions for companies. But we're not stopping there. We're enhancing the candidate experience with high-quality, bug-free application pages, real-time status notifications, and a supportive job board portal. Designed to make job searches smoother and more engaging. Profilytic redefining recruitment for everyone involved.
Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes and exclusive content designed to enhance your recruitment strategies.
Are you ready to transform recruitment with AI? Introducing Profilytic, a cutting-edge SaaS platform designed to streamline hiring. Now you can be part of our journey. We've launched a crowdfunding campaign on Wefunder to bring this innovative solution to businesses worldwide. Learn more and join us at wefunder.com Profilytic LLC. Together, let's shape the future of recruitment. Visit Wefunder today. Link is in the description.
Profilytic is a sophisticated software application that leverages artificial intelligence to streamline and enhance the recruitment process. Built upon the same automation engine used by Uber, Profilytic provides a comprehensive suite of features, including a job board, protection against harmful content, spam filtering, resume discrepancy detection, contract and offer management, compliance monitoring, real-time data insights, automated scheduling, and AI-powered candidate screening and matching.